I think we are, oops, are we live? Looks like we're live and everything else. So I want to welcome everyone today to the New Now. This is episode number 9. My name is Tom Matzell. I'm out of Bellevue, Washington, right out of Seattle. In the great Northwest. And during this time where a lot of people are slowing their lives down as far as being at home, I wanted to take an opportunity to reach out to some friends, some people that I've just met and other acquaintances, and find out what they're doing with their time during this pandemic. We can focus on the negative. I like to focus on the positive and some silver linings. There's a situation that I remember one person told me about. If you take one person's idea, like in college, it's called plagiarism. If you take a lot of people's ideas, it's called research. So what I like to do is just have conversations with different people, because I know there's a lot of people that are smarter than me, and most people are, but it's just good to reach out. And today I have a great opportunity to reach out to one of my great friends, Paul. We've known each other probably 20 years, probably mid-90s, late 90s.
Yeah, 23, 25, I think we might stretch it that far.
So I want to introduce Paul Yatkowski. He is actually he lives in Tennessee, but right now he's in Texas, where we're reaching him. And just want to introduce Paul. I've met Paul 26 years ago. We worked together at MCI while it was still around, and then it became WorldCom. And is WorldCom even around anymore? I don't even know that.
No, they filed I think it's chapter 11, chapter 7, one of those two actually went bankrupt, and then Verizon bought them and merged their assets into their company. So some of the people that I worked with, Jan Stearns and I think Ann Newton, may have carried across with the account that we were working. So, you know, the remnants of the business carried over, but yeah, the name disappeared, I think, in somewhere around the late 2000s.
Okay. So for anyone who knows myself or yourself, great. But for those who are calling in or just watching for the first time and don't know you, Paul, would you just give everyone a little rundown of who you are, and we'll get off and running?
Sure. I guess starting from humble beginnings, you know, been living in the States since 89. I was born and raised in Winnipeg, Canada. My dad was a Mountie. My mom was a teaching assistant. I have one sister who also went into the teaching profession. So pretty humble background. I was a happy but awkward and clumsy and late developing child growing up. And, you know, I like to consider myself a late bloomer. At some point, the lights did come on. I still think there's a few more watts I can turn up, but started off in Canada and had a great beginning there. Great country, great people, just a nice place to grow up. But somehow I had a coach that believed in me and got me into football and built some aspirations for me and encouraged me to try and open up some options for myself. So he pointed me to the South, and thought that I, somewhere deep inside me, somewhere down the road, had the potential to be a pretty decent football player. So at 18 or so, I just decided, well, why not? And I picked up and I moved across the border far away to Grand Forks, North Dakota. And I spent a year at the University of North Dakota as a walk-on, and probably had the roughest experience I've had in football. Just the difference between the caliber of coaching and the level of competition. Found myself really kind of just taken aback by what I had to learn in order to compete.
Was it the speed or the size or just your mental kind of maturity? Or
well, the mental maturity was definitely part of it. Like I said, I really consider myself a late bloomer. I was a walk-on. I had an opportunity to go to the University of Manitoba on a scholarship, but at that point I had a little bit of a wanderlust in me. I like the idea of taking a chance and seeing what was out there. So when I jumped across, I was really going into unknown territory. The game was different. The quality of coaching was significantly different. And then the speed of the players getting into college, the size and the speed, it was shocking. And that relates even more down the road through my career. But in this case, I landed there and I did the best I could. Like to tell my boys, I made one of the bigger mistakes in college in my life. My first semester, I wasn't very focused on what I needed or should have been doing, both athletically and academically. And my first semester, I was able to come home with a 0.79 GPA. So I dug myself a pretty big hole, academically, athletically.
That's a solid. And
Yeah, you got to work hard to get 2 F's, 2 D's, and a C. That doesn't come easy, right?
And what was that C in?
I think that might have been basketball, I believe. So,
you're good at that. So.
Yeah.
So let's just take a pause for a second. And I want everyone listening, who are your friends or know you or people who don't know you are listening. I really want people to understand, and we've been lucky, and I've been lucky to have people who are athletes in college before on this program. I also had people in different corporate jobs or different entrepreneurs, and everyone has a different, I don't want to say struggle, but a different journey to get to where they want to. Like you said, sure. The lights finally came on for you and stuff. But yeah. I just want, to talk, if we do have some kids on the line, we look the same, but we're different. If we stood together when we were kids, we probably looked like the number 10. I was very skinny and you were the H word. So, so the thing is, we both got to where we got to at different points. I came from New York. I moved to Seattle with our family in the late 70s. You grew up in Canada and moved down south. I want you to just, if you could remember any of the times that when you were growing up, is there any distinctive times that you remember of any successes or struggles that really kind of planted in the back of your head and kind of motivated you to go forward? Because there's a lot of times in our lives where we get to the fork in the road and we know a lot of our friends have gone this way and it hasn't worked out well for them. And a lot of times, I will say this about myself, I've taken a road, dead end, and then you finally figure it out. I'd love to hear from you about like how it worked out for you or, your situation. I mean, a lot of us don't know what it's like to live in Canada where it's negative 15 in the winter?
Negative 40. Oh. Yeah, a little colder than that. You develop thick skin and thick blood. But no, to your point, Tom, the challenges that you face, especially at a younger age, are they're vast and they can be really daunting when you look at them. In my case, kind of picking up where I left off with North Dakota, I was just outgunned, unprepared, and just not ready for what I got myself into. So when I came back with those grades, my dad said, "I'm not paying for this. You got one chance to fix this." And so both the university and the athletic department agreed. I was on probation, so it's kind of faced with a bleak situation, which is either fix myself or go home. And at the time, I was a bouncer in a bar. I figured, well, that's not what I want to do for the rest of my life. So, I really took it upon myself to challenge my fortitude. Could I be better than this? Am I better than this? Should I be better? And as it turns out, I buckled down and I had a 3.65 the next semester. But beyond that, I just thought I want to see what else is out there. So, I could have just folded my cards, gone back to Canada and hunkered down in what was comfortable and familiar. But I decided I was going to try a different path. So I packed up my bags and I went to Arizona, and I went as far as I could across the United States to try and plant a new flag and build a new opportunity. So I took on a whole new challenge. It's scary as an 18, 19-year-old kid. I didn't know a soul. I didn't really know where I was going, where I was staying. I got there, I talked to the coaches, and they liked what I had to offer, at least from a conversation and my physical appearance, but they still knew nothing about me. So I drove home, I packed up my bags, and I literally got off the plane without a place to stay or knowing who was going to pick me up. I completely went in the blind, but I just decided this is the path I wanted to take. And I think through my life, I've really come to understand that some of the biggest opportunities or the biggest gains that I've ever had, the biggest successes have come from really scary challenges, jumping into the unknown. And there's a thrill to it. There's an excitement to it when you're, back when you're young, you don't have a lot tying you down. You don't have a lot of responsibility. So you can really hang your feet over the edge. And you, to some degree, that if you fail, you still have a lot of runway to recover from. But it's that sense that sense of accomplishment and that thrill of the challenge that I think is something that when you're young, you should really pursue, because the opportunities are unlimited. as long as you have the ability or the internal strength and the support structure to say, I'm willing to take this challenge. I'm willing to jump into the deep end and see if I can swim.
This is something I want to highlight because a lot of people out there, young and old, go through this. When they get to a crossroads or something in life and they become uncomfortable. And a lot of us, as we get older, we become curmudgeon, or we don't want to put out the effort, or we don't want to be uncomfortable. But that's where I think most of us grow the most, because we learn to make that comfortable. Maybe it doesn't become our strength, but we learn to deal with it. And it's never to a point where you embrace and run to a fire, but it's not going to stop you, because you know, if you want to grow, you need to get across the street. Now, some people do that through family support, through network, through hard work, through different ways. But I think this is very important for people to understand and listen to, that sometimes growing means changing. Change isn't bad. I know a lot of people say, I hate change and I fear change. Change isn't bad. How many of us would still be dating our sixth grade crush if we didn't change, or wearing the same kind of outfit or the hairstyle? Paul had a great mullet for a while, business in front, party in the back. But as it changed, we are who we are today. And I think, this is a great lesson for kids. This is a great lesson for adults and for people who are even retiring of, okay, what do I do now? I need to change certain things if I want things to look different.
Yeah, change is scary. It doesn't matter what it is. It can be change in location. It could be change in career. It could be change in a relationship. And some of those can lead to really positive things. Some of them can lead to negative things. But we along those lines, we always have the ability to make another change. I had the opportunity to play some professional football, and due to some injuries, I decided it was just best for me to get out of the game. So I had to make a change in my career. And I had a degree in exercise physiology. I could lift weights. I knew how to lift weights, but that just wasn't going to cut it for me. So I decided I needed to make a change. So I left football and I got into telecommunications. Got married at the time and ended up with a short marriage. And I just decided I needed another change. I wanted to pursue something a little different. So I decided to move across the country. And I had left Knoxville, where I started for WorldCom, and I ended up taking a job in San Francisco in the Bay Area, where you and I met, working for WorldCom. And within a year of my time being there, I went from entry-level sales to working one of the biggest global accounts that we had, with a phenomenal team of people. And that was all new. I landed there, I didn't know a soul, didn't know where I was going to live, and I took that opportunity to change. Then I had another change in my life where I got out of work. I had the opportunity to do something that I think was really special, and be like a stay-at-home dad. I had the opportunity to be a parent, and that became my life. So I changed into something that was really different from me, going from working in corporate America on a $100 million account to raising my kids. And it was a chance of a lifetime, opportunity of a lifetime, that something you'd never forget. But again, a big change, and going through that, sometimes when you come out of the back end of things, you start realizing that, within that change, there was an opportunity to do things. And, I realized that I gave up not gave up, but I put aside a lot of the things that I could have and should have pursued. And now that my boys are 16, I'm again at a change. I changed my location. Now I'm looking at a change in career again. And, the opportunities and the excitement of it is there, because, I've got great support. I got great people around me who care. And, those are the people that can help move you through the difficult times of change. But you can always make that change for better.
And I think it's a great topic to talk about, because obviously a lot of us are at home. Some of us might have lost jobs or lost careers, and we have to look at change. And I want people to be very conscious of their words, because we like to be right. And when we say things are going to be hard, we're going to purposely self-sabotage ourselves sometimes to prove ourselves right. And so a lot of times when people say it's going to be hard, I'm like, you're setting yourself up to be hard. I'm not saying it's not going to be hard, but a lot of times change usually results into something better than what you have. So instead of looking at change as a bad thing, I'm excited when I have to change, because everything I've changed, not always worked out, but more times than not, I've got to a better place. And I don't look at things as a failure if it doesn't work out. It's a learning opportunity where I could save time, money, or energy where I don't have to go down that path anymore. So the one thing I've done is I stopped watching TV a while ago. I mean, let me rephrase that. I still watch a monitor, but I don't watch network TV. And there's nothing wrong with TV. I love TV, but I've been watching a lot of podcasts or listening to podcasts. And I love comedy and I love a lot of things. But a lot of times the comedians talk about, I've had to put in so much time and I've got beaten down. But everything I've learned, I've built off to help me get to where I want to get to. And a lot of times we all have to work. We have to change or modify different things until we get to a tipping point and then it finally works. So I don't want people to be afraid of change. I don't want to have people think that change is running away from things, because sometimes you could be running to change. And yes, some people do run away from change. And if you live in the same town you grew up with, I think that's awesome. And if you move away and want to live in a big town, that's awesome. You have to do what sings to you. Now, I know that you and I, we met, like we said, late 90s, mid to late 90s. And I love the story because I believe you were just out in San Francisco for a while. I was in Seattle. We both worked for MCI Telecom. And I remember coming down and you picked me up at the airport. And I don't know if you remember this, but you were like a little kid, just like, oh my God, this is so exciting. This is so exciting. And I was just like, all right, what's going on? What's going on? And you're like a little kid in a candy store. And we got along real quickly, talked about sports, talked about life, had a lot of things aligned. And then I walked into our conference where everyone from around the US, or at least the West Coast, met together in kind of like a group. And there's probably 8, 10 of us, and they all happen to be women, which fantastic. But they were in that stage of life where they're all getting married, were married, or having children. And that is a fantastic time in life. But I understood why Paul kind of felt alone, because wasn't married, didn't have children at that time, didn't know about pregnancy, and it was just kind of like found someone he could talk to. And it was just, he and I think we just bonded real quick. And believe me, everyone else in that room was fantastic. But when someone's talking about morning sickness all the time or naming their kid, I respect it, but I don't have much, can't
really contribute to that very much, right?
I just kind of bonded together out of survival sometimes.
Yeah, those were fun times. And the reason I seem that way picking up you at the airport, because, I went back to my old days, and I probably did walk out of the candy store at the airport. So, bouncing around on a sugar high, old habits. But yeah, it was a really unique situation. I just packed up what I could in my truck, drove across the country, landed there. I did a video conference interview with our manager, Sherry, and it worked out. So I landed there. I didn't know my team. I didn't know my way through San Francisco, but I figured it out on the run. You were definitely that life raft for me. Our team was, like I said, phenomenal, great group of people, and just phenomenal experience. But it was nice to have that one guy that I could reach out to, work with, and kind of share my stories.
Yeah.
Because sometimes our stories don't necessarily work out in that kind of group.
I love it. Every time I think of Sherry, I think of Steve Perry's Journey song, "Oh Sherry." And every time someone says that, I just get a smirk, because I remember when we first talked and she said, "Hi, my name's Sherry." And I started singing "Oh Sherry." And she's like, "Oh my God, who is this guy?" And the first time she came up to visit me, I might've worked there 4 days. And she came up at like 10 in the morning, 11 in the morning. I said, "Sherry, hey, let's do something fun." She said, "Okay." And I said, "Let's go out." I took her to the courthouse. I got a ticket, and I basically had to stand in front of a judge, and I talked my way out and negotiated my way out of the ticket. And Sherry's like, "That was interesting, but I think I hired the right guy."
There you go. I did not know that story. That's interesting. It's a great way to impress the boss.
It was nothing too wacky, but it was no, I take that back. It was, I didn't properly stop at a stop sign. And
stop, right? Yeah. Takeable offense.
Yeah, it is what you know what? I have not drank out of this cup in years. And look at this. It's an MCI World Cup. It's a weird thing that just came about. So Okay, well, let's talk about your boys. You talked about your boys are 16 now. How are things for them? What's different? What's changed? Any silver linings? What are they missing the most? How's life?
Well, they're doing great. It was a big change for them, but it was something they were excited about. I've always liked the idea of moving around, trying something new, seeing a different part of the country. And, we're living in Scottsdale, Arizona at the time. They were born and raised there. And, we talked about making the move, and we talked about it over about three-year period or so. And when the opportunity came, we made the jump, and the boys were excited for something new. I've been taking them to UT, University of Tennessee, for years to football games, so they understood what it was like. It's a huge departure from Arizona, going from the topes and the sand to the lush greens here. So they liked it. They love being in Knoxville. Part of the change was they were in a phenomenal school called Webb School in Knoxville, and they went from public school into private school, which was really challenging for them. So they definitely had some struggles early on, but Southern hospitality is what it is. The people in Knoxville are phenomenal. They're just great people, and the boys landed in school, got involved in lacrosse and football, so they really enjoy the sports aspect of it. But they're happy in Knoxville. They really are. They're doing great. Tate, they both got their permits at 15, and they turned 16 on March 18th. And Tate was all set and ready to get his driver's license the next day, and then the shutdown occurred. So he's chomping at the bit to finally get in there and get his license. So when I get back next Thursday, he's going to have a shot at it. But they're great boys. They're working hard. They're just trying to move forward, trying to figure out what they want to do down the road. As sophomores, they still have time to make some decisions, obviously. But as long as they stay focused on what's important, academics, athletics, staying healthy, and staying busy doing what kids should do, I'm good with it. They're happy guys.
So they're sophomores this year?
Yeah, they're finishing. Yep.
So they got 2 more years. Any thoughts from them, what they would desire after? Do they want to go into the workforce? Do they have a desire? There's so many people doing YouTube, playing the esports or going to college. Anyone have, or the kids have a thought?
Ty talks about law. He's thinks maybe down the road he'd get into law. They both talked about the possibility of doing some service in the military. Obviously a very, very honorable thing. So, all I can do is just be encouraging. I've, as a father and as a coach, because I coach at their school, football at their school, and some lacrosse. But I've never overlaid my life experiences on them, the things that I'm passionate about. I love football. If they don't, that's fine. If I liked X and they liked Y, I'm good with it. Follow their passions. So, as parents, you always have hopes and dreams, and for your kids to be as successful and happy and live the greatest life possible. But they've got to find their own paths, and all we can really do is be as supportive as possible to make sure that they're realizing the opportunities that are in front of them, and let them make their mistakes. I've always said in parenting, you've got to create the boundaries for the kids, and make sure they know what those boundaries are, and they're gonna bounce against them. They're gonna push, and that's fine. But they always operate better when they know what their limitations are, where they need to be. But let them crash into the walls as often as they need to, because it's part of the growing experience.
So for them right now, what has changed? Would they still be in school, or would they be out right now?
No, I think shortly after spring break or right after spring break, mid-March, is when they announced the school closures. So we spent a couple of days on vacation down on the South Carolina coast. We came back, and that was kind of the end of it. In our case, we're really lucky. Their school, Webb, is fairly advanced in technology and technology support of the students in academics. So with a few adjustments, they just went into virtual classrooms. They use, like everybody else, I think, Zoom to have meetings with their teachers in a group setting, as well as individual settings if help's needed. They have their assignments. They turn them in. My boys usually turn their assignments in. Sometimes they need a little extra encouragement to get that done. But From that point, they're still at home and they're still doing what they need to do. It's been tough. You know, I had the opportunity to experience this when I got out of the workforce and I kind of became a full-time parent, full-time dad. I had the opportunity to do anything I want. And the one thing you think, everybody thinks, God, if I didn't have to do anything, I would do everything that I wanted to do. But you find that without structure, it's easy to lose time. And, a couple hours can lead to a day leads to a month leads to years. And then next thing you know, it's like, man, I wasted a lot of opportunities, a lot of time that I had. So structure, what I've learned from that is that structure is really important. So part of the problem that I think the boys and probably a lot of kids today are having is that there's no structure. When you go to school, the bell rings, you go to your next class, your assignments are due, it's built in. This is what you have to do today. But when you wake up and you kind of pay attention on a Skype call and like, I'm going to play a game and then maybe I'll do my homework later, it's easy for things to fall apart. It doesn't matter what you're doing. Structure is really important. I learned that I've been working on a master's degree for Master's of Art in Teaching, and being out of school for 25 years, it took a little bit to try and get a master's degree done in a year. I'm almost there, but I had to really build my schedule. So I can understand what the kids were going through right now. So we try to build that plan for them, but for kids out there, it's easy to just let things slip through the cracks.
Let's not just say kids. I'll raise my hand at adults. I was one of those kids in class that teacher always said it was a pleasure having class, but talks a little too much to his neighbors. I probably had a little ADD or maybe a lot of ADD when I was a kid.
Don't believe it.
And the thing is, yeah, and it's one of those things is I knew that probably one of the things that didn't hold me back, but probably would have helped me a little more is a little more discipline. So I've got to a point where I'm still not fantastic at it, but I've got it to enough where it's not a hindrance anymore. And I just have a simple morning routine. Take about 45 minutes to get a little structure and some things done that are going to help me with discipline, focus, and this. And that's the thing. I know when you became a full-time father, you did some great things. You've checked off some things off your bucket list. You went and scuba, you got your pilot's license, you did some fun things, and you've also learned things. I've also admired you because you were a handy person. I remember when I moved out to Arizona one time, you had this opening in this wall and you're just like, let me draw this out. And you just made this TV cabinet. And you're just like, Tom, need more 2x4s. Go get me some. But it was one of those things that you knew how to do that. You always had that structure to fall back on. And I think a lot of it has to do with the way we grow up. When you have a lot of things, you don't have that desire or worry about needing a lot of things. But when you don't, you have to work harder because sometimes you have to worry about, the basics or just some other things. And so like for you, when you were in sports or you were in school, your parents were probably like my parents. If you want to go to that, that practice, I lived in New York and I was 7 years old. My mom's like, if you want to go to practice, it's a mile away at Cerrico Beach. You have to ride your bike there and back. We're both working. Now, again, back in the 70s is totally different than today. I know a lot of parents were like, oh my God, I would never let my kids do that. It was a totally different, and we lived in a small town, but that's what you had to do. And that basically structure built a little discipline and saying, if I want something, I have to work at it. And I think, during this time, it would be great for a lot of us. And I'm learning this too, I don't have extra time because the thing I'm doing outside of this with the restaurants, but if you have some extra time, what's a new skill that you can learn? We can all watch Netflix forever, but after a while that gets old and your waistline grows. So what can you do differently? People are saying, I can't go out. Okay, you know what? Download an app. Learn how to speak a different language. Learn like you're going to school. Something to embetter yourself, because it's not the time, but it's your mind. And if you let your mind go to mush, that's where I think we're all in trouble.
Yeah, there's always an opportunity. Like you said, when we were younger, man, if we were locked down back in the late 70s, early 80s, I think we'd probably lose our minds because we didn't have the technology, obviously we didn't have the technology then that we do now, where you can still reach out, you can talk to people remotely. Like you said, you can learn another language. You can take a class, you can find something to do to better yourself, or to something to challenge yourself with. So, in my case, like you said, I was a handy guy. Everything I learned from my dad. I had a lot of structure, him being a Mountie and my mom a teacher. There was plenty of that. So, some of the things that I try to do around the house, building things for the house, cabinets, closet systems, whatever it is. I try to get my boys involved in it, so they understand, how to use a trim gun, or put sandpaper on the hand sander, or whatever it may be. So, from a parental standpoint, there's lots that you can do. I mean, shoot, you can actually sit down and get to know your kids as well a little bit better, because, you actually have that time to sit and talk. They're not always out doing something. In our case, they go to school at 7:30. They hit the right now in season lacrosse. We would have been playing lacrosse. They would have been busy till 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, home for homework. You kind of get a chance to talk to your kids a little bit through the day, when you find your opportunities through dinner. But now, you can sit and talk to them. You can do some little, digging into their soul, I guess you could say, find out what they're really thinking, what they're really feeling. So, for the lockdown, for as negative impact as that it's having, both, unfortunately, the terrible side of it, the fatalities, but also the impact on the economy. It is interesting when you're driving around to see families doing what families used to do. You see dad riding with the kids on a bike, or mom out walking the dog with the kids, or everybody together. And those aren't things that you'd normally see. People are actually starting to integrate and talk and socialize again. And I think that's become somewhat of a lost art. People just don't sit and talk. Like last night, we're sitting here, and I made a joke to my girlfriend Caroline while we're kind of getting ready for dinner. Her and her two kids were all sitting there, and we're all in the same kitchen area, and we're all looking at our phones. I'm like, oh, there we are, the modern family. We're all sitting in a room, but we're all looking at a phone. So we all put it down and kind of got back to what's really important, which is spending time with each other. So, you can learn to be more social. You can reintegrate with your family, reconnect with them. You can learn a lesson, something new online, which is a great thing. Starting a master's degree for me was a phenomenal thing. It was difficult, but I'm close to completing it, and starting a new job in August. So everything seems to be moving in the right direction.
That sounds awesome. I think it's a great time that we're lucky, and I try to look for the silver linings. And it's like you said, it's horrible of the death toll that's out there, and how people are getting sick, and the economy. And believe me, I'm feeling as much as anybody, but I'm also trying to look for the silver linings. I get to reach out to friends and do different things. Like you said, be social, get on a Zoom call, make a happy hour with your friends. But realistically, it's try something new, try something uncomfortable, because that's how you're going to grow. And I see a lot of people who are trying different things now and getting momentum. So when the gates are open again, they can go full bore. So that's interesting. I want to talk to you about also. I've had some people, and I've been lucky enough to talk to people from New York, London, Arizona, Iowa. You're in a different part of the U.S. In Seattle, our governor just instituted a 4-phase plan where we're in phase 1. Phase 2, they're going to open up some restaurants at 50%. Phase 1, they opened up some parks and some golf and some other little things. How is Tennessee, and you're in Texas right now, how are those two areas dealing with this pandemic? Are you guys totally open? Are you totally shut? Are you kind of in between?
Well, Tennessee, some of the states in the Southeast, I think, were the first to kind of push to move open up the economy again. So along with Georgia, Tennessee opened up early. Texas, I think, came on about a week early. But Tennessee's done a good job. I think to this point, it's done a good job of managing this pandemic, the crisis, and what we need to do to get open. Right now, we're about to enter. I think we're about to enter our phase 2. So our first phase was restaurants, some of the more social businesses.
And how's that going down there? Because I know we're not there yet, but what's your experience?
I think it's going well. They were operating at 50% capacity for the last week or so. I know there was a lot of local support for takeouts, so businesses were trying to stay open. A new restaurant. I feel really bad for the owners. They opened a brand new restaurant just down the street from my house about a week and a half before everything was shut down. So I can't imagine the stresses that they were going through. But you buy what you can when you can to try and support them. So businesses have been open. I was finally able to, for a while there, I thought I was going to regrill the mullet, but I was able to get in for a haircut. It's a different environment. It's really strange if you really haven't been out into these opening businesses. It's strange to walk in and see everybody wearing a mask. So, to some degree, I think it's a little intimidating for people. They're going to be scared to go out because when you see a mask, you associate it with a disease, you associate it with illness, and it might keep people from pushing out a little bit more and trying to open the economy. But Tennessee hasn't really been heavily hit, I guess, compared to other states. I think we have about 250 deaths, and 80% of those were, about 84% of those deaths were in the 60 and up range. So if you look at the demographics, I think you can start to delineate who's at risk, who's not at risk, and where you should, depending on where you fit in there, what chances you might be willing to take or where you might be willing to go. Texas is just opening. They're opening their gyms, I think next week, maybe Monday. But they've got their plans and their processes in place, and it makes things difficult. But if it's important to you, you're just going to have to go along with it until this shakes out.
Have you, I don't know, in Knoxville, do you guys have a Costco or Sam's Club or any of those kind of warehouses?
Yep. We have both. And as of Monday, I think Costco instituted a policy nationally to wear masks when you go into the store. So, it's, hey, they're private businesses. They're entitled to set up their own rules, operational rules. So if you want to shop at Costco, wear a mask. If you don't want to wear a mask, shop elsewhere. It's a great thing about America. We all have options.
You know what? I've never been a mask guy, but I've worn them a number of times now, and you just get used to them. And the same with gloves and stuff. And it's not for maybe you and I, because we might have a stronger immune system. My girlfriend has asthma. So I can't go out, do certain things and be nonchalant because it's what I'm bringing home. So if you live with your parents or you have younger children, I get it. I respect it. It's one of those balancing acts, and everyone has to do what's best for them. And so I don't like anyone saying what you should do or what you shouldn't do. I believe everyone should have their own right to make their decision. I know the president, a lot of people don't agree with him, and a lot of people don't agree with your governors. They're trying to do the best they can. And when people are bitching and moaning, I'm like, look, you're a grown adult, or talk to your parents and figure out what's best for you and just make the best of it and try to look for the silver linings. This isn't going to be forever, but you know what? There have been great world wars before. There was bubonic plague. There was 9/11, where the country had to stop and modify what they're doing. And that's what we have to do now. But also, great things have come out of periods like this. If you look at the housing shortage of 2009, a lot of things came out of that because people had to stay at home and they had extra time. And I think there's some people right now who are thinking, hey, I have time to write a book, or hey, I could work with somebody else on a different concept or whatever. I feel bad for the companies like the Expedias, like the Booking.coms, or the travel industry, the hotel industry, that are just getting decimated. But out of this, I truly believe something newer and not better, but different will hopefully come out of this.
Yeah, typically, the innovation comes out of difficult times or a need for change. So I can imagine there'll be, new companies spawned from this. There'll be new opportunities for people. Hopefully they're all good. I'm sure there'll be some ideas where you're like, does that really make sense?
Yeah.
Maybe not. But there are some industries that are struggling. When I was here in Dallas just over a month or so ago to visit, and I was probably one of 30 people flying on a 777, a 3x4x3 plane. And, you're talking about a plane that sits 350 people, being one of 30. I mean, it was the greatest flight I've ever had. abundance of room.
Move up to first class, we're full.
Exactly. Yeah. We can't have you up here. It's a weight and balance issue. You're still going to have to sit in the back.
You've got a lot of weight and you have no balance.
I've been told that before. I do have rhythm though.
How are your parents? I know
They're
your
good.
mom.
They're good. You know, it's like you said, you know, just not to focus too much on the pandemic, but like you said about your girlfriend, she has asthma. You have to be careful. You know, my parents are both right in the 80s. My mom has some health issues that would make her very susceptible to very poor outcome if she was to catch the virus. So, you know, as a responsible son or person, or you know, just somebody who doesn't want to hurt anybody else, really, I'm not going to go visit them. So, you know, in my conversations, them still being up in Canada, I FaceTime with them. I remind them every time we talk, don't leave the house. If you do, make sure you're keeping people away, wash your hands, all the important things that the risk mitigation that they have to take, you know, as being responsible for their own safety. So they're doing great though. You know, they're up there. It's starting to warm up in Canada. Things are good. My sister's still up there and she's doing well. She's got a great job, a bunch of dogs, fosters dogs. I know you got your tank of a dog back there. You know, being a dog person like that, she is. So my family's doing well. You know, I don't get to see them nearly as often as I'd like to, but you know, the nice thing about technology is that it's easy enough to reach out and have a face-to-face, at least, you know, through a phone.
So I noticed, I just looked at the clock. We've been chatting for 45 minutes, and it's one of these things that you and I can laugh about new things, old things, and just make up things and talk forever. And that's one of the things I love talking with you. We can talk every day. I remember we used to talk every day for years, and then we can go a year or two without, and we just pick up. And I think that's what's great about friendship or people who respect each other. I don't want to take too much more of your time, but when this gets to a place where maybe in August, September, or when we come up with a vaccine, whenever that time would be, what's one thing you're looking forward to that maybe you can't do today that you'd like to do moving forward?
Oh man, I can't wait to get back out on the field and you know, just start coaching football, working with the kids. Love being on. Probably the one thing I love more than anything is being on the kids and being on the field, not on the kids, on the field.
911.
Gotta clarify that one. But being on the field, working with these kids, getting them to, you know, to find a love and a passion for the game. I've had so many bad coaches in my life. I played football for about 16 years from 10 on. And through that, I still persevered through bad coaching. And I made a kind of a commitment to myself that I'd never, if I had the opportunity, I'd never let that happen to another kid. So, you know, get out there, coach with positivity, teach these kids something new, instill a love for the game with them, and you know, build some bonds and teammanship with their players and fellow students. So I cannot wait to get back outside and start interacting with people watching, you know, and then Saturday, obviously watching games on TV, you know, being a football fanatic, it's kind of my thing.
Have you talked to any of the coaches? Do you guys know? And obviously the NFL, NCAA, NAIA, and everything will probably trickle down. But have you heard of any new kind of thoughts that they might do? I know UFC just had their fight, but I'm thinking of contact sports that they sweat on each other. As you were saying earlier, the gyms might have you wear masks and gloves to go in the gym. Are there anything changes that they're looking to put onto the football field? Like you all have to can't wear masks, but maybe gloves. I don't know.
You know, I haven't heard anything. They're still debating about putting players in the stands once the season starts off, and until our governing body of athletics in Tennessee, the TSSAA, decides we're going to move forward with sports, we still don't have a clear direction yet. When it comes to things like contact sports, you know, there's nothing you can do. You know, you can't play in a biosuit. So the key to this, though, is I think it's being logical, using common sense, and letting the data back it up. As I said earlier, you know, in the state of Tennessee, out of anybody, there's been one reported death in the 10 to 19 age group. I think there were 2 from the 20 to 29. So when you look at this and you understand that the comorbidities the aging comorbidities play a big factor into the mortality risk. When you look at college athletes, these kids are in the peak of their health. They're the peak and prime of their being. They're athletic. They're well tuned. They're well cared for. If it needs to be regular testing before they go on the field, so be it, whatever it is. But these kids have very, very, very little risk associated to any poor outcome from the virus. I mean, all things considered, they may have already passed it around. This was happening in January. So when you're talking about 30,000 students on campus, and what students do, there is a high risk of transmission. So it could have gone through. So until we can see if there's antibodies that have been developed, we can continue to test. But these kids, they need to get out there and play. They're about the safest population right now.
Yeah, nobody knows. Everyone's speculating, and there's some people that go off data. There's some people that are going off of hypotheticals. I've heard different reasons that our numbers are very skewed because at hospitals, they get paid more money to say it's a COVID death. If someone comes in with a heart attack and their shortness of breath, well, is that a symptom of COVID? Well, if I mark it's COVID death, I get paid more. I don't want to go into conspiracy theory. This isn't about politics. It's just you hear different things from different people until something is cemented out there. I don't care. I think like you, I want to get out and just play basketball, play racquetball again, do whatever, just to get a good sweat and just enjoy your friends, be able to hug your loved ones just to be able to go out and do whatever. And I think we will get there. And so I think if we can learn to embrace this time, because I hate to say it, in a year, a lot of us are going to say, you know what, the pandemic wasn't so bad. Now, the deaths and the economy was terrible, but I'll be honest with you, I have to drive to some of the restaurants, and during rush hour, it could take me an hour and a half. Now I'm there in 20 minutes. So I know when I'm in traffic in a year and a half ago, I'm like, you know what, another pandemic wouldn't be so bad.
We need good old pandemic kicking around again.
Just embrace what you have now. Love your dog, love your kids, love your wife, love your husband, love whoever you're around. Reach out and try to do something different. Make the most of the time, because this isn't going to be forever. And when you think about it, if you live to be 50, 60, 80, this is only going to be a blip in our lives. So let's take it that way. Try to calm ourselves down. Don't freak out. And I think if you are struggling, reach out to other people. I think that's a big thing. To the professionals or your friends that can just talk to you, and don't hold it in. I think a lot of people I've seen that are still kind of a little fanatical or a little stressed are people that are thinking too much and not talking and reaching out to friends. So I think this would be a good time to reach out and lean on others, especially if that's something you need.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's when you're sitting at home and you're getting the 24-hour news cycle, and Facebook, for as good as social media can be a terrible thing where you just feed into this cycle of news that this cycle of hatred that you could call Facebook hate book at times. Sometimes you just got to check yourself out of that and start looking for the positive things. Like we were talking about earlier. Change can be difficult, but change can also be good. So look for the positive things. If there's changes that are going to come out of this, there can be some positivity for sure. But talk to people. Talk to the people that you love. Talk to the people that you trust. Talk to a medical professional, whatever it may be. But don't sit at home and let the frustration kind of just eat at you. Don't let the anger build. At times we're an angry enough society as it is. If you want to wear a mask, wear a mask. If I don't want to wear a mask, I'm not going to wear a mask. I'm not going to come into your space. I'm not going to push my views on you. Don't push it on me. But as Americans, we all have the ability to make personal choices and decisions. So we need to find a way to let everybody live life as they want to, taking precautions as we can to help each other. But this isn't a time for people to be angry. You got to let go. You got to find the positive things in life and look for the next opportunity to make you happy. Make something that makes you happy. We always have that option.
Well, I want to thank you for your time. We've been able to catch up a couple times over the last couple of weeks and months, so it's always great to be able to sit down with you. I don't know, for some reason this kids came in my head talking about getting it back out. When Paul and I used to live in Arizona, we used to play racquetball, and we enjoyed it. Were we the best at it? Probably not. Were we better than some people? Sure. But were we great at it? No. But the thing I loved about Paul is, even as good or bad as we were, we'd be competitive with whatever we do. And one of the funniest times was Paul and I know a lot of you guys are going to think I'm a moron, but this is just, it makes me laugh and smile. And every time I'm having a bad day, I think of this story and I laugh. Paul and I were driving separate cars to the to our gym, and we'd hit a red light, and one of us would get in front of the other, and we both had sunroofs. And when one of us were ahead of each other, we put our finger outside the sunroof, like, we're in first place, we're the best, da, da, da. And all of a sudden, we get just whipped by this other car, and you just see a finger just come out of his sunroof and put a finger up. I don't know why I laughed. I don't know why I thought it was funny, but I just thought of everyone around us thinking we're morons, and there's one other person's just like, I'm better than both of you. And it was just chin to chest, just, oh. But
hey man, just jump in. The water's warm. Any dummy can get in our game.
Yeah. So, hey, I always ask people to do this before we leave. Is there anything that you want to promote or push? If anyone's looking for a house in Knoxville, do you have a website for them to go find you, or anything that you'd like to talk about before we end our session?
Yeah, sure. Along with some of the other things that I've been doing, I'm a licensed realtor in Knoxville, Tennessee. My website is callpaul.today. So if you're interested, callpaul.today. So if you're interested, you're looking for a house, you need to buy, sell, or just want some professional insight into the market, feel free to reach out to me through the website, on Facebook, same thing, and I'd be happy to help you any way I can.
Good. Well, again, I thank you for your time. Have a fantastic time in Texas, and hopefully when this slows down, maybe you guys come up to Seattle. I'll head down to a football game in Tennessee, maybe in Mexico. We could do something. But I thank you so much for your time. I just feel lucky and fortunate to have a friend like you and to be able to reach out and just to catch up. So,
hey, man, I appreciate the opportunity to be on here, and glad we coordinate our shirt colors.
Yeah, I saw that. I was just like, God, people are going to think we're morons. Well, more morons than we are.
They already think that.
I represent that remark. So have a great day. Tell Caroline hi for me, and you be well.
All right, Tom. Thanks, buddy. We'll see you soon.